Welcome back to the Joy of Medicine. Again, this is Trey Cashion, and I'm with Dr. Richard Cashion and my dad. And Caleb's back there, and we're gonna kind of move forward. You know, this is the Joy of Medicine, and we've talked about joy, and we've talked about stories, and we've talked about the fact of trying to be like Jesus as part of being joy. But we both kind of read parts of a book by Christ Stefanik. For those out there, it's The Joy of Living, or Living Joy. I'm sorry, Living Joy. 9 rules.
Very good book
to help you to rediscover and live joy every day. And I think that it has some really good points that I think are worth kind of rehashing. So all credit to him. As with many things, it's like, oh yeah, that's right when you read it, but you do have to be reminded. And so hopefully this will help with that, with trying to get you to be able to do the things that will help allow joy to well up within you. I mean, joy is kind of a gift. It's not something that you orchestrate. It's not determined by one's circumstances. It's something that's inside.
And it's different from happiness.
Right.
And I think that's important. I think I did talk about, if you take the joyful mysteries, if you think about them, there's a lot of, most people would not consider joy in those mysteries.
Right. And so, because happiness often, as defined, has more to do with the circumstances you're in, I think. I'm not even sure that that's a correct definition, and we're not going to define those terms here yet, but I do think that there is something that, happiness tends to be a little bit more kind of, I don't know, peripheral or external, and joy is kind of something deeper inside. And Chris Stefanik gives a few kind of rules to help you do it. And I think some of them are, oh yeah, that makes sense, but they might be counterintuitive because they're focusing on things that are not determined by your circumstances. And the first one of them is that we're going to start with is, rule number 1 is give thanks. And I think that's something that I know I struggle with. I have to stop, because you can focus on everything that's not going the way you want it, or the things that happen that, well, that's just going to add another 2 hours to stuff I've got to do, and I don't even have 2 hours to give. And so you start kind of getting down into the day-to-day. And I've got to think that people that are as busy as most of the physicians that I know, and you. And bankers. Well, and bankers. I mean, doctors, I think they can, typically most of them will work longer hours than I do for the most part. But I think that it's something that you can kind of get caught up in the stuff that's bothering you. So like, I hear people that I've heard multiple doctors tell me, I can't believe you want your son to be a doctor. I said, well, I think he's called to be a doctor. That's what he wants to do. And that's what is important, that they're called. Right. I'm convinced that being a physician is very much like being called to the priesthood. Right. You have to have that same kind of sacrificial feeling about what you're doing, that you want to do it and you love doing it. Right. And it's more than... But, concerning people that have spent their whole life being a doctor, that seem to have been successful at it, have probably helped at the end of their career hundreds and hundreds, are discouraging their kids or other kids from being doctors. And you know what? It's funny. That's a really good point. And that's one of my really strong feelings. And I perked up over here with that, because I think the thing that's happened with medicine, which is all the peripheral stuff getting into it, the finances, the money, the insurance companies, the government, all the things extraneous to taking care of patients. And, and that was sort of the conclusion I came to my book in The Road from Troas, is the fact is we need to get rid of all those things to allow physicians, particularly the younger ones, to get into it for the right reasons and to love it. Right. And for them to focus on it. But God help us if people just say, well, because all that stuff's there, I'm not going to become a doctor. Well, that's happening, Trey. I know it is happening. Yeah. And like I said, I've talked to multiple physicians who have said, I would never be one again. because of this. And I think part of it is, I can't speak for them, and I can't speak for you either. But I think it's like with most things, you begin to start looking at the things that are getting in the way of doing what you love, so much so that you forget about why you did it in the first place, right? Does that make sense? I mean,
no, it makes a lot of sense.
So you can get so caught up in all the peripheral stuff and focus on it so much that you actually are not capable of actually enjoying the reason you got into
it. And I think what you were, one of the lists of things you're getting to be thankful. Right. And in other words, God has blessed me with so many things. It's like I go on for hours talking about it. But the point is to be thankful for everything, including the bad things. Right.
And that's that's one of the things he mentions here. He talks about Haiti's secret sauce. And your granddaughter Madison went to Haiti on a mission trip a few years back. And what she came back with was, they have nothing, yet they're the most joyful people I've ever met. I mean, they're joyful. Yeah. And he's saying the secret sauce is they don't focus on the earthquakes and the floods and the barely have a floor,
diseases,
diseases and stuff. They focus on, he said, they focus on what they have to do, what's in front of them. I mean, whatever that is. So they focus on that. And they focus on the things that they're grateful about in their lives, like their brothers, their sisters, their daughters, their parents, the people in their lives. And I think she said this, she said, it's like almost because they don't have all those other extraneous things, the things that we worry about day to day, like, can I pay my bills? Can I do whatever? That they actually kind of whittled down to where they're actually focused on what really matters.
Absolutely.
And it's so hard for us to relate. It's so hard for us because we got all these other things that kind of occupy our mind. I heard a friend of mine say that, one of the ways that the devil causes division is through distraction. Causes division in ourselves is by distracting us. And we are full of distraction. I mean, these phones, and the TV and, 24 hours a day. I mean, I tell my kids, they can't believe that, at midnight that the TV would actually just stop transmitting, or that there was only 4 channels when I grew up. And,
but this is a device of the devil, I think, in many respects.
I mean, in many respects, unless you're careful about it.
Right.
But it's the distractions. And so in a world like where we are in a high level, first world country, we can learn something from the third world countries, but in a sense, they've got it right because they're thankful about the things that matter. I've been accused in my own family and rightfully so of getting so bogged down in the stuff from work and bringing it home that I don't enjoy the people that are most important to me. That's sad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is honestly a sad state. I don't think I'm a whole lot different than a lot of other people because all the extraneous stuff, all the stuff that's just kind of peripheral when you really think about it to what really matters. My relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my children and the people that I spend time with during the day. I'm not thankful enough for that.
Yeah, and spending time thinking about what you're thankful for gets you focused on the fact that there's a lot that's going well.
Right.
Because you could focus on, and like we were just talking before the show about watching television and the different networks, and they're focused on all the bad things. And if you're not careful, your brain can flip to that mode and you realize that how terrible everything is.
There's a line, it steals my joy. I mean, it steals it because you're letting something do that. So there's got to be a part of it. The other thing that, like, speaking of not having that, he also uses, in addition to the Haitian people, he also mentions Anne Frank.
Oh yeah.
And Anne Frank, for those that don't know, I mean, she was hidden away in an attic closet from the Nazis, a young lady, and she wrote this. she wrote this while she's up there, knowing that her people are getting
coming after
killed.
to kill
They were
her.
coming after her. And yet she could say, these are her words. Think of all the beauty in yourself and in everything around you and be happy, right? And be joyful. I still believe, in spite of everything, this is her. I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. Now, I mean, think about that. I mean, it's a young girl who, in the midst of as horrible a thing as we've seen, certainly in the last 100 years, and she's the center of it. I mean, they're coming to get her and her family, and she can't go out and play. She can't go do what a normal young girl would do. Yet she has that and still has the ability to say there's still good out there and focus on that. Think of it. I mean, it's not only humbling, it's convicting to somebody like me when I'm like, I'm upset. I mean, what am I upset about? I mean, seriously, I've got so many things. And then I guess the next thing is he talks about himself, and I can so relate to this. He said he's driving and the air conditioning in his car goes out. And the first thing is it's hot. I can't believe, and gets, starts working himself up because of that thing. And then he starts saying, well, I have a car. I mean, a lot of people don't have a car. I have a job. I've got, and having to remind ourselves that, okay, that's a problem. But think of all the good things that you have in your life.
To refocus your life and put it on the things that you're having joy with.
And so it's active. I mean, this is something you have to work at. It just doesn't happen. And I think for the people that are entering into it, and even for the doctors and nurses and whatever that are in it and see all the peripheral stuff that is, we're not saying that that's not problematic. We're not saying that doesn't make it harder to do what you do, but if you can focus on, why did I get into this in the first place? I mean, I told Grace, and I said, look, what you're going to have to, my son who's in medical school, I said, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done to date, what you're about to go through. And you have to keep reminding yourself of the why am I going through this?
Yeah.
Because that's the stuff that gets you through the trials, over and around the obstacles that come your way, and can allow you to continue to experience joy in the midst of those things.
And your grandfather, my father, who was a physician, and he used to say very similar type things, that when I told him I wanted to be a doctor, and I did almost from the moment of birth on, I don't know what it was, God and did that, but he used to say, are you sure? This is not necessarily fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's important for people to gauge, why.
Yeah.
But part of it is this, and that's kind of my gauge on listening to Grace and talk. As hard as he's working, as many hours as I know, because I can sit there, on one of these phones, you can track where he is. Well, he's almost always up at the school. I mean, at 10 o'clock at night, he's at the school.
Yeah.
But then you can hear actually his level of excitement, concern about,
well, it's
can I remember it, but
I was probably a weird kid, but I used to love school.
Well,
and he does too. I mean, love it. It was not like it was a problem when school's starting back in September. Yay, team!
Right.
I was going to be good. And medical school, very, very hard. But in fact, I loved every minute of it.
Right.
I mean, it was like, wow, I'm learning this about this and learning this and whatever. And that is I was a gift from God. But I didn't even think about how bad it was. I thought about how good it was.
Right, but if you know that, like, I'm called to be a doctor. This is something I have to go through. It's like anything else. You want to be a professional athlete. You want to be whatever. I mean, there's work that has to be done. So enjoy the work, enjoy the process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and not focus on the stuff in front of you, but on the goal, and that's something I have to. You don't get stronger without putting your body through a little bit of pain, right? I mean, so anyway, I thought that was it. And he has a few things that I think are important. I love this about this book because he kind of gives
it's a good book. You might show him again.
Yeah, it's Living Joy by Christ Stefanik. I've heard him speak. Dad has too.
It's great.
Yeah, he's a great speaker and very much somebody who kind of exudes the joy. And he gives a story about himself, so he's not different than us about how upset he was, because that would be something I'd be upset about too. But it could be a multitude of things, the traffic and being late to be somewhere because, somebody got in an accident or something, and you start thinking, okay, wait a second, there's actually might be somebody up there hurt, but you're focusing on how it's impacting you. But he has a few how-tos, and that's what we'll probably end with. But I think they are really, really good suggestions. So the first one is, it says, count your gratefuls every morning. Now, I've not done that before, but what I have done with Stephanie is have a gratitude journal, and we have spent time previously kind of listing, what am I grateful for? So this is an active thing to kind of help facilitate joy. If we don't do it, I think our humanity kind of brings us back to all the stuff that's not going right, the stuff that's in trouble, the worries about what's going on instead of what's in front of you.
No, that's great that you and Steph do that. I
haven't done it in a while.
Okay,
we've done it before.
Yeah, and what I've tried to do, I can't remember who it was that gave me this idea, but it's something I read or whatever. But when I go to bed at night, I try to think about the day. What did I do which was good?
Right.
And what did I do that was bad?
Right.
And how do I make tomorrow better?
Right.
And so I try to do that each night.
The church call that a daily examine.
Yeah.
But I think so. If you read Ben Franklin on how to improve your life, right? I mean, if you read Ben Franklin, which we did, I mean, very secular, very brilliant, accomplished so many things. One of the things says you got to pick something to work on, and then you have to work on it, and then you have to every day sit down and say, how did I do towards
that
goal? And then how could I have handled this better? That's something I know I have. The church encourages it. I mean, right? They say you should do what you're doing every day.
I don't every day, but I try to.
No, but I mean, and neither do I. But I think if you want to work towards joy, and being thankful is something, giving thanks is something that's going to make you more joyful.
When you do it, you think of so many things that you overlooked.
Right.
In other words, and it's interesting in the book that I wrote, and the concept of when you write something down, and that's the way I learned. I talked to Grayson about this.
Right.
The way that I did extremely well in medical school was I wrote everything down. I write cursively. I don't print.
Yeah.
I write cursively.
You have good cursive, actually, for a doctor.
And I write pages and pages and pages of that because in my brain, it triggers something that I remember it.
Right.
And that's how I remembered things in medical school. But the point is that doing that and writing down the things that you did well and the things that you did not do so well, and then try to do better. I think that is a formula for success.
Right. And so I would say, encourage you, if you want to increase the opportunity for joy to kind of come out of you, then actively make a point to 10 minutes at the end of the day or in the morning when you're praying and get up to read, to just take 5 or 10 minutes to just say, this is what I'm thankful for. And see the impact that'll have on you.
It'll be impressive.
I think it will. So that's one thing that I would say, wherever you are, begin by maybe having a journal. If it's writing, I think that's a good way to do it. Have a journal and just say, 3 things I'm thankful for today. And start your day with, I'm thankful for these things. My wife, my kids, my job, whatever. How pretty of a day it is. Mm-hmm. It's under 100. I mean,
right.
whatever it might be.
And hopefully
there's rain in the
forecast. We pray for rain.
So,
please, dear God.
One of those things. So I would start with that. A thankful journal, a giving thanks journal. So wherever you are, do that. The other one that I thought was really interesting was he says, let trials trigger your gratitude. Now that's totally and this is where you're getting away from the, my circumstances determining my happiness, right? The joy is something deeper. And part of it, I think, and you probably remember this story that I think is so, he's talking about a lady that he met that was kind of down because she had some problem. And it was, why is this happening to me? And he was saying, basically said, so how's that working out for you? Well, what it was when you start focusing on the problem, what you're going through and the why that you can't get an answer to, then it's all about the negative aspect of it, right? It's all, so if that's your focus, your joy is being stolen. The perspective he had after talking to him, which I think is something that we can learn from in terms of being a trigger, he said that he turned it around on her and said, this is not happening to you, it's happening for you, which communicates a couple of things that I think are part of joy. The happening for you means that there's a providential hand out there that's orchestrating things, and that as hard as something might be, there's something to learn and gain through the trial that you're going through. And I'm going through some difficulties just with work. It's a tough time in banking. And I have to keep reminding myself, again, this is an active reminding, because you can very much focus on all the stuff that's not going right. You have to say, there's something that is happening. It's not a surprise to God. This is not like, whoops, I missed this one. I mean, God has got a plan, and he's allowing it for something to happen.
And that's the key. And I did this, I think, in one of the first shows of this bunch. When you go through the joyful mysteries, like obviously Mary is a 14-year-old girl and find out she's pregnant. So how many 14-year-old girls that are pregnant are joyful? Well, she was very joyful because why? It was because
she knew from whence it came.
From whence it came. But and then she goes and visits her cousin, I guess it was anyway. She goes, that's a 90-mile walk.
Right.
And in the desert, basically.
Right.
So she walks 90 miles. She's joyful. Why is she that? Because
she knows she's in. But she also knows, regardless of even how she knows, that externally, people are going to say, how did, you must have done something bad, and so there's going to be lots of other things that she's, when saying yes to, that are going to cause problems, but she focuses on the good that's joyful, at hand, not the stuff that might happen.
And then think about her birth. I mean, my God, right. She goes in labor. She's in a stable. They're the only place to stay.
Right.
And
exactly.
And Joseph is running around trying to find a place. I mean, what a horrible situation.
And they're the joyful
and they're totally joyful
because they know they're in the midst of those trials, and that's something we have to remind ourselves of. Wherever you are, that you have to remind yourself that God knows this is not a surprise to Him. And if it's happening, if there's no room in the inn and you have to have your wife have a baby in a stable and lay him in a trough, then if I know it's for me, if I know it's from God, that it doesn't matter what all the other people thinking, oh, look at those people over there that can't even afford to get in or find a place. They're not thinking about the externals. They're focused on, this is what I'm meant to do.
And then like they visit Simeon and Anna when they go to the temple, and they're told by Simeon that these horrible things are going to happen.
Right.
And it would be scary. So you have to focus and eliminate that stuff from your life and focus again on the joy. Right.
So I think part of it, as you go through it, she carried them in her heart, right? So what she did is she had the perspective that we're all called to have, which is, no matter what's happening to me, it's not a surprise to God, and He is in control, and He can bring good out of it as long as I recognize it as He says, a trigger for, okay, God's doing something here. I don't know what it is. Right? I don't know why it is, but if God's doing it, then it's something that's meant to bring good out of it.
And you think in the next, the final one, Joyce, the finding the temple. Can you imagine? I think I mentioned this on the show. God has given you this child, and you're responsible for him, and you lose him for 3 days.
You lose the Son of God.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I've thought about this 100 times. Can you imagine the stress of running around trying to find him? And they finally find him, and he's in their temple,
in the temple, right?
And he's talking with all the people,
and they learn something about him. So it's again, they see the revelation.
He's a little bit of a smart aleck at that moment too.
But then he goes back and he grows in wisdom and obeys his parents going forward.
But I think the joyful mysteries, if you focus on them in that sense, are really a very clear differentiating between happiness and joy.
Right.
And what's behind it all.
Right. If you're in the center of what God's will is for your life, no matter what the circumstances are. When I was worried about triplets and all the fears associated with what was going on, I used to say there was a strange peace and joy, and because every time I started thinking about the stuff, I'm like, well, he knew this was going to happen. And somehow this is not going to be easy, but I'm not in this alone. Stephanie and I are not in this alone. Stephanie's not in this alone. There's something else going on here. Again, it's like taking that you have to make yourself think, this is happening for me. Yeah. This is not happening to me.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think that's it. And then I think the last one is, and I love this one. I don't know if whether it's mom and you or whoever, but I find myself doing this all the time. It says, say thank you often throughout the day. And I have found that's been very helpful to me when somebody helps me with something or just has an encouraging word, whatever, to just say, thank you.
Amen. I agree. That is, yeah.
To build. So it's not just, of course you're being thankful to God throughout the day, obviously, but
all the people you come in contact with.
All the people you come into contact with. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your smile. Thank you for your hard work. Thanks for the way you helped me. They're small things,
and what it will do, it will increase your joy.
Exactly.
There's something about that.
Yeah.
When you're thanking somebody, and you will increase their joy, which guess what, increases your joy.
Right. So just get in the habit of looking for opportunities to say thank you to somebody.
Right.
Right. Thank you for holding the door for me. Thank you for letting me go in front of you. There's so many small things throughout the day that we can be thankful for. So all of these things, as you understand, are to give thanks. You have to actually be consciously working at it, right? You have to take time to make a prayer journal, to make it real, right? Number two, make sure that you understand that the trials that you're going through, whatever they are happening for you to become somebody better than you were prior to them coming. And then three, just cultivate a thankful heart by just being thankful for the people you come across with, the nurse, the doctor, the patient. Thank you for being here, whatever. But I think if you do those three things, I think it's really a way to cultivate joy. But that's, so homework assignment, those are the three things. Start a journal, be thankful, make sure that the trials are triggers for thankfulness, and then just be a thankful person to other people. So with that, hopefully that'll give you enough work between now and the next time you listen to us.
Increase your joy.
Increase your joy, yeah. God bless you guys. Talk to you soon.